Hey everyone, welcome back to Innovation Unplugged, the show where we sit down with trailblazers transforming industries through technology and bold thinking. I'm Jim Brismissis, and today we're getting a hands-on, literally and figuratively, session with Peer Robotics, a company that's reimagining human to robot collaboration in the workspace. Their robots are built not just to replace people, but to work with them, making manufacturing and logistics safer, smarter, and more efficient. And today, we're joined by the company's CEO and a good friend, Rishabh, to talk about his vision and their journey and how Peer Robotics is redefining what automation really means. So with that, let's get unplugged. Rishabh, thank you again for spending some time with us today on today's podcast. Let's start with just an introduction of yourself and the company, and then we'll get deep into where Peer Robotics is really making a difference with your clients today and where you see the industry going with robotics, which is very topical as well. So thank you again for joining.
Awesome. No, thank you, Jim. Really appreciate it, and great to connect and talk about Peer Robotics. Just as a quick overview, I come from a manufacturing family myself. So born and brought up in space where I've seen small scale manufacturers trying everything to, deliver something good for their customers, right? So motivated by that, started Peer Robotics, and the idea was how can we ensure that we can build solutions that can learn from humans, that can make it simple for people on the shop floor to adopt and deploy these robots. So we truly believe at Peer Robotics that future lies in human-robot collaboration, not other way around, not taking the humans out of the loop. So that's kind of like the journey. We think that the fastest way to the market, the most, I would say, reliable route to ensure that the robots can add value is to make them learn from humans, learn from people who already know what they're doing, and build up on top of it.
And make them more efficient at what they're doing as well. Absolutely. So let's start with, Rishabh, there's been a lot of robotics in the spaces, the markets that you're selling into. Given your background and your family's background and being in this space and seeing some of these common problems, clearly your design principles for Peer Robotics were different than what most robotics companies are putting into market. So for those who are listening that are heads of distribution or manufacturing, I'd love for you to share what were the, I wouldn't say the downfalls, but what were the gaps in the technologies that existed that led to you building the capabilities that you have today with your platform?
I think the biggest question was, who are you building for? So when we looked into solutions that were out in the market, most of those solutions were very personalized for specific industries. So I would say they're almost like vertical specific solutions. So now what happens is that large scale enterprises can create those vertical specialized solutions for their companies. But then when you talk about the broader market, it's really not a fit for them, because during the design process, they kind of adopted fundamentals that were designed for large scale company and a specific target market rather than a wider adoption across the industry, right? So first thing was that, okay, like if we have to make these robots adopt to different types of industries, how are we going to do that? So that's where the philosophy came into picture, that let's bring human in the loop. Let's figure out a way where human can show. And then the idea was, what is the modality we are going to use to allow humans to train the robot? So, if we look onto the shop floors, voice is not typically a good thing. If you have walked on a shop floor, you're probably never going to hear what the other person is saying to you. Vision, sure, could be a part, but then it's also initially limited, because how do you show them something to do by just vision? So the simplest thing was that you have a person, he's moving a trolley or they're moving a trolley. What if you grab the robot just like a trolley, move it around, and it learns in that process? So then next time onward, it can do it. But then the second thing was also that, sure, we can learn about it, but then to add value, we have to automate their existing assets. We can't come in and say, change X, change Y, change Z, and then we will give our value, right? That is to come in and say that I can automate your production line, you just have to change all your components.
Almost a non-starter in the customers that you sell into, right? I mean, you have to kind of make your technology fit how they already have their processes. And that's a key difference, I guess, in what you've developed with what you and the team have developed at Peer Robotics. It's not just humans teaching, but you're basically saying, hey, and please keep me honest, I'm sort of piecing a lot of this together. You're basically saying, we're going to take you as your systems are today, and we're going to learn and augment that going forward. Is that fair?
100%. That's the fundamental philosophy, that we don't want to come in and change your process. Now there are two sides of the coins. Can you help them make better operations? Yes, but I don't think for that we need to change their asset. I think that could be progressive, right? And if you look into the studies why the automation adoption has been low, it's not that people can't get ROI, but they can't figure out where to start from.
Yeah.
You know, they don't have, first of all, they don't have the budget to start a new factory, so that's out of the picture. You can't change
Right.
their infrastructure. Then whatever technology you bring in, it has to start from base level and then grow from there, right? So that's kind of like what I think was a major problem that we saw in the market, and we solved with our technology, which was to make sure that the robots can automate existing assets.
So let me ask you a practical question, my friend. Let's say I'm a theoretical customer of yours. What does day one look like? What does day zero look like? What does day one look like? Because on the surface, if I were to be cynical, it sounds great, Rishabh, that you're doing people train the robots. But tell me how that works. I'm curious to get your perspective on that.
So day zero is still whether the solution is right for you or not. So first thing, we want to connect and understand whether adopting these robots are going to help you with any ROI today or not. So if you're not doing a lot of movement, if you're doing just one type of movement once in a while, probably automating this is not your problem right now, right? Like we can automate, but that's not going to give you good returns. The day one is that when we bring in the robot to your facility, how can we make sure that the robot learns about the space and can automate that movement? But the hard part starts from day two, which is to make sure your team can adopt the technology, right? So introducing the technology is one thing, but making sure the adoption happens, that's another question, right? And we have developed the technology from the point of view that everyday people, everyday operations can be adopted, but there is still a small learning curve that has to take in place. It could be mindset, it could be the way you handle the operations, but that learning curve is something that takes a
Yep.
little bit longer. But typically, what we have seen within like a week or 2 week of operations, the systems are up and running inside the production, full
Now,
integrated.
like other solutions that enterprises will buy, there's always the cost conversation and there's always the ROI conversation, both of which, frankly, and I'm a little biased here because I'm a big fan of Peer, but both of which I think you guys excel at. Let's talk about ROI first, without naming names, certainly, but what are you seeing or what are your clients seeing in terms of average ROI?
So ROI is the biggest question, right? Like again, the point where adoption might not happen is not because they don't want the solution, is that how can they get return on it, right? Now, we don't want customers to invest 2 years down the line kind of question, right? Like, oh, I pay for this solution today and then I'm gonna get the value 2 years later from the solution. Again, large enterprises might be able to do it, but small scale would never kind of invest such amount. So first of all, our robots are priced at a highly cost-effective fashion, where we say that if we automate that application, you are getting that value out of it from day one. So you are able to get the value of the operations, and you are able to augment the throughput from a customer or from a person point of view from day one. And typically, when we automate, we do try to make sure our utilization is very high. So if there is something going wrong, the robot is utilized just at 30% or 40%, we are the first one to go and tell customer, hey, why that's happening? Let's figure out a way to get your utilization high, because I don't want to just sell one robot, or I'm not here to just sell the robot and leave away. I want to make sure you can get more value, because you're going to tell your peers that there's a company called Peer Robotics
No
that
pun
you should
intended.
buy.
Get it? Yes.
Exactly, right. So that's kind of like our objective. So if the utilization is very good for the end customer, we have seen anywhere between like 6 months that they can get the ROI, complete return on investment from their purchase of the units
And
itself.
your pricing, fair to say, most of your clients don't need to take out lines of credit. You're actually pretty aggressive on your pricing. Can you maybe explain, again, without divulging too many details, but basically explain what your pricing constructs look like to the client?
Sure. Sure, we do capex based sales. So it depends on kind of like how the customers want to purchase the unit. They can have different options too. But our solutions range from anywhere $40,000 to all the way to like 80K, depending on the asset and the solution they are buying. But it's priced to a level where you don't have to think twice whether that solution is going to give you an ROI or not, because we are competitive from the point of view that we can elevate the throughput from the user, plus also eliminate any other external asset required. So it becomes easier for you to automate and you don't have to think about anything changing on the floor. Now, to that extent, you asked about another point there as well, which is, how do we ensure that the pricing is also competitive with time, and why is it lower as well? I think the reason is what technology we used. So pricing has a factor which is like, how do you optimize the technology to bring the cost down? A lot of our stack is built in house. The technology is built in house. We control the entire development from ground up. So product design to final software is built in house. And because we vertically control the entire development, it's allowing us to give a price point which is very competitive. So it's not like our hardware is coming from somewhere else, software is developed somewhere else, and we are integrating it. The entire thing is built in house, which allows us to have a very competitive
Of
price.
the many things to be in awe of Peer Robotics, these little rolling workers are really packed with a lot of technology, as you mentioned. Let's put a little spotlight on that, my friend, because I think when you get under the covers to see what's really working there, you have essentially rolling machines, yes, but they have onboard edge. They run their own AI models. Your digital twinning facilities. Tell us a little bit more about what's actually in the robots. Again, not to share too much, but it'd be curious to hear that as people are trying to assess your capabilities.
So in one of the new models, we have 6 cameras, and these are kind of like 6 cameras that are creating a complete bird's eye view of the facility. And every processing is happening on the robot, on the edge. There is no data going out to any external server. There is no processing happening outside. So as the robots are moving around, they're collecting these data from the visual cameras and also the LiDAR. We have a 2D LiDAR as well for safety purposes. And we combine this data to create a digital twin of the facility. And this is not just point cloud data, these are RGBD data. So we are creating depth along with the RGB data, and we do segmentation on this data. So the robot is already trained, like we train our own models again in house to figure out what is a wall, what is a floor, what is a pillar, what is a pallet,
Yep.
what is a human, what is a
Yep.
trolley, right? So the robot has this high level information, which is like what's happening in the environment, what kind of asset I'm dealing with, how to react to that specific asset. So I'll give you an example where we are moving pallets. We might need to stage one pallet in front of the other. So we would go very close to another pallet to keep the pallet right in front of it. But instead of pallet, if they were a human, we won't go that close to it at all. And that's what the decision making is happening on the robot end, that it can figure out what kind of object it is and it can take an action accordingly.
The following is just my speculation. Keep me honest on this, Rishabh. But as part of your robot's learning journey and digital twinning of these facilities, in addition to the value your robots provide on day one to clients, the digital twinning is an important capability you've created because essentially what it's doing is it's helping the clients understand where they have bottlenecks or hotspots of, let's say, degraded efficiency just because of how things are arranged. Is that a fair statement based on the learning platform you've built into the Peer Robotics?
In fact, I would go a step beyond and say, uh, at Peer, we are not trying to just automate physical movement, but we are trying to automate operations. So the idea here is that physical movement or physical asset itself is a part of the puzzle. But really, what we have to automate is how the operations take place and how the operations can do better, right? So again, a little bit of or personal bias here, which is most of the small industries, the owners are the people who are also the operations manager. And the limiting factor for them is not that they don't have enough sales, is that they are tied into their own sales or like production facilities, right? So they can't look out and find more resources or revenue channels. If we can help them take a distance and help them automate these processes, right, we would be able to generate much more throughput for the customers, for our owners, let's say, right, for the company owners. And I think that's where we believe Peer, especially with the data that we are collecting on the visual side, on the digital twin side, it opens up layered intelligence platform. So slowly we can add on more capabilities on these platforms that can increase the throughput for the customer, that can increase the value for the user. So much like kind of any technology, phones, you buy it for probably a phone call, but then slowly these apps gave you more to do from these systems. We see robotics in a very similar light, which is right now they're physically automating an operation, but slowly they would be able to add more intelligence, add more actions that they can do, which will give you even more throughput.
Now, this isn't all science experimenty. Your technology just doesn't sound good on paper. It's actually being deployed, and it's being deployed by some large enterprises. Where you are allowed to speak of it, can you maybe shine a light on one or two clients, not just who they are, but how Peer Robotics has helped them?
So currently we are deployed around 9 sites. We have robots kind of working 24/7 in a lot of those facilities. Depending on their operations, could be 2 shift operation, 3 shift operations. Most of our customers are automotive and electronics players. So we are working with tier one automotive as well. We are working with tier one electronic industries too. Now, the type of operation we do really is personalized based on their requirement, right? So there we can do as simple as taking a bin from one location and feeding it to another location, all the way to moving pallets across the shop floor. So depending on the asset, depending on the operation, we are deployed, and our facilities that we are deployed also ranges from as small as 20,000 square feet to as big as like 300,000 square feet, and the robot is walking around the entire space. So yeah, all in all, the deployments are more focused and personalized to the industries, automotive, electronics, and vice versa, other industries too. And they're able to move pallets, trolleys, bins, depending on the requirements.
You're not just deployed here in the United States, my friend. I also believe you're deployed globally. Is that correct?
Correct. So the beauty of making things simple is that it also disconnects you or allows you to have much wider deployment without physically being engaged. So we have robots actively deployed across US, Europe, India. We have few systems with our partners as well, even in Israel, in Mexico. So there are other geographies also the robots are there, not kind of in production lines, but production lines we are deployed across US, Europe, and India.
I think I wanted to ask you this question earlier and I missed the opportunity, so I'll use the opportunity now. If a client starts off with one Peer robot and then decides to add two, three, four, fair to say that that one sort of is the baseline of the operations, two learns from one, and others kind of learn together. So it's not like your clients need to start from scratch necessarily. Is that the right way of thinking about how do you scale inside of a client's operations beyond that first unit?
100%. And I think what we see this is also like a kind of evolution. So as you bring one robot, you get value out of it, and then as you increase your capacity, you buy another robot because you want to get more out of it, right? So the robots learn from each other. In fact, we are not the ones who would go in and say, "Hey, buy 3 robots, buy 4 robots." No, in fact, we would come in and say, "If your requirement is just one robot,
Yeah.
start with one.
Yeah.
It's okay. You can think you can bring into second robot whenever you want. There's not going to be any additional cost of, oh, now we want to charge for additional integration deployment. Nothing like that.
And that's a good point, Rishabh. I wanted to call that out because I certainly don't want anyone listening to have a perception that every additional unit is almost like Groundhog's Day. We're starting over again. That's actually not the case. Their IP, if you will, of training the initial robot in the digital twinning service you've done and all the other learning that the robot has done simply just gets passed on to others. And so a factor of 2 or 3 or 4 beyond is just actually helping their operational efficiencies gain faster and, more importantly, see that ROI faster as well. What is next for Peer? I know you've done extremely well in the areas that you have done today, but there's an exciting roadmap, I would imagine, right? So what's next for Peer beyond where you are today and kind of where you want to be in the future?
Yeah. So we haven't publicly disclosed one of our new robots, so we are planning on launching that soon, sometime around in May. And along with that, we are also kind of taking steps towards the journey of layered intelligence that I was talking about. So the idea is that what all value add services we can provide to our customers beyond just automating material flow. We have done a lot of work with our existing customers to understand what were the bottlenecks for them that can help them scale faster, that can make our robots even simpler. And our focus today is to make sure we are able to embed as much intelligence as possible on the robots so that tomorrow when a customer buys the unit, or let's say the same customer, when they come back and use the unit like second year, third year, they will constantly see how they are gaining more knowledge and becoming more intelligent. So that's the way we are going forward. We want to constantly build on this intelligence platform, and we really see these robots as a platform. So we want to figure out where all the same robot can add more value to our
What's
customers.
really great, Rishabh, I'm not saying this to make you feel good. It's just my reality of the great success you've had so far with Peer Robotics is that you're using the right technology for the right purpose. And it's not just about it's a robot or it's got AI or it's got all these capabilities. It's about you have all tuned these capabilities in a way that works well with humans, that is productive on day one, that has ROI to the clients really quickly. So this isn't just fun technology; it's purposeful technology, and it's actually making a real impact with your clients. So congratulations for your success so far, and thank you very much for sharing with us all the great success you've had so far with Peer Robotics and your learnings as well.
No, not at all, Jim. Appreciate the time here, appreciate the platform, and really looking forward to working along with the ecosystem to actually deliver.
That wraps up our conversation with Rishabh today from Peer Robotics. A huge thank you for joining us and sharing how your team is building a more collaborative, human-centered future for automation. For our listeners, if you're curious about how robotics enhance, not replace your workforce, Peer is the company to keep an eye out for. They have a vibrant YouTube channel with a lot of videos of their robots in action today. Don't forget to subscribe to Innovation Unplugged. Leave us a review. Share this episode with anyone that's interested in involving their relationships with humans and machines. And until next time, keep innovating and stay unplugged. And Rishabh, thank you again for being our guest today. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks a lot.